Can I ask Tony a question?
Yeah, absolutely. Tony's a bee guru.
So,
Are you the one taking care of the apiary?
yes, I am.
Maybe
Among others.
Maybe I could meet you out there sometime. We're getting samples for Nosema,
Okay.
and I wanted to put some temporary numbers on them so I could take a UV or infrared picture of them too, so we can get some insight to see how big the colonies are.
Yeah, I thought my wife had sent you a text or email. I didn't. I really don't email or do that kind of stuff. I mean, I text, but I thought she gave you my number. I have no problem with any of that, but I just wasn't sure. There are numbers on the bottoms of the majority of them, but we did put a couple of new hive stands out there that we didn't have numbers on. But yeah, you can even spray paint it on with a magic marker or a piece of tape or something like that.
Yeah, we put it on with tape so we didn't confuse anybody if we made a mistake.
Yeah, no problem. I'm sure if it's easier for you to keep track of which hives you're going into or looking into.
Yeah. Well, for the picture, it makes it easier or more reliable to interpret which hive you're looking at when you see the picture with the numbers on it.
Yep. So next time you go in it, you know which, what, or where.
Is there a time that you'd expect to go out there?
Not usually it's towards the end of February, and just to check to see if it's got food. But George was out there last weekend, and actually I was away last weekend, so I really couldn't meet up with him. But I would say probably the end of February or first week of March, something like that. But didn't I give you my number, Don?
No, I could take it down now.
Right. Let me give you my cell, 610.
Okay.
496.
496.
2608.
2608. Okay, I'll be in touch.
Okay, yeah, just text me over something if you want to go out there or whatever. I mean, if you want to go out there anytime, it's how to get there. So
yeah,
problem.
And most of the bees are up at the top right now when I check for the food, Don. So they're right there.
Okay.
Asking to be taken by Don for the benefit of science. It's like, take me now.
Yeah, they raise their little wings and say, "Take me, take me."
Put me into that alcohol Ziploc bag. Just what I always wanted to be.
Like warm. Well, I thought you already went out there and did samples of them.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, but
Okay.
in about a week or so, it'd be time to do it again.
All right. How'd they fare? Did you see a lot of?
No, I think there were 2 that were positive only.
Yeah.
But we'll have more of a report in a couple of months when there's more relevance to some kind of a graph that Ray Walker can make.
Yeah.
So welcome everybody. I apologize for the confusion in times. So from that until we start meeting in person again, we're going to start the monthly meetings at 6:45 and not 6:30. So anyway, just to let people know, in the first half hour is going to be bee gurus. So if anybody has questions, Keith's on, Merle's on. I haven't seen Warren or Frank yet, but they may join later. So it's sort of an open discussion, just like what we do at the in-person meetings. If anyone has any questions, just unmute yourself and hopefully Keith and Merle can help you guys out.
Begin.
Begin.
Fire
away.
There's Merle.
February.
When are the meetings going to go back to in person? Do you have any clue?
Not yet.
No, I know not yet. Any idea of when we're looking at some sort of even an outdoor meeting or something would be probably kind of, almost, if we're going to have the March thing, the conference in March, I would think maybe possibly after March. getting back with the meetings or no?
We'll see. I don't know. It just kind of, right now, I haven't, I know some things are starting to open up. I'm just a little uncomfortable sort of, having more than a small group of people outside right now. So, but,
It's a virtual conference. So a virtual conference means no one's attending in person. That's why we're having it virtually. Just to emphasize that. So I think it'll be a long time before we can all meet safely. You'll probably have to follow like CDC guidance.
Well, it's just like restaurants, they're open 50%, if we had an outdoor meeting, would that be kind of better than an indoor, even if we went out in Jeslyn and had it underneath of the pavilion there and set things up 6 feet apart, if you want to say that or whatever. I mean, we usually don't get 100 or so people, but I don't know when realistically we're looking at it.
I mean, our outdoor meetings usually start when, in April or May? April. So I'll keep my eye on it, Tony, so we'll see.
The beginner's course is going to be meeting both virtually and in person.
Yeah. We've done some small group stuff like the beginner's course. We did the mite washes at the apiary. So, I
No, just curious. That's all.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
Yes. Well, yeah, I'm sure. But I'm just saying, kind of missed the real live meeting.
I'd like to have one in-person meeting before my presidency is done,
You're getting robbed, that's for sure.
Hey, George, I have a question. This is John. Did they record Tuesday's meeting seminar?
I don't know. I did not. So I'm not sure if it was.
Yeah, towards the end, I started to get a little confused. And it would be nice to go back and review some of the
Graphs.
graphs.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the graphs.
Yeah.
It was a great seminar. It really was. I'm surprised after all these years how much more I've learned. It's good. And I'm looking for
I thought I saw a record button on somebody's.
That might be me.
Might have been Mark Meters.
I think I just hit it.
related to that. That was swarm prevention, not necessarily a demery. Did I get that right? Especially towards that last graphic where Keith puts, "Is this a demery?" ?
Yeah, no, that was the Herman Werner approach. The demery is next week, so that's Tuesday next week.
Okay.
So this is in opposition to what a demery is.
So for those of us who don't want to do a demery, then this would be what we would follow in lieu of a demery.
Oh, there are a number of other approaches as well. It depends how well you want to do swarm prevention. But I think the demery, I hardly see a swarm leave, if ever, if you follow the demery.
So Keith's presenting again next Tuesday and the following Tuesday. So we'll have 4.5 hours of swarm prevention this February. So nobody's hive should swarm this year, So I think he's being very thorough on all the different methods. So, and then the last one on when is it, Keith? On the last Tuesday's more conventional splits and some other things that may be a little simpler, but.
Yeah, easier ones. Yeah, just how to do a simple split, and what are the problems with splitting, and equalizing the colonies. Things you can do that are swarm prevention. That you could say, look, it's too complex to do a Herman Werner, or it's too complex to do a demery, and you could then go for one of these other techniques. And I would often advocate to our beekeepers to say, look. Why don't you keep small hives? Why don't you just do nucleus hives? It makes it easy. Once you get these monster hives, it's extra weight, it's extra effort. It's finding the queens horrendous. Why don't you split and then split and then split and keep a nucleus size, double, treble, 4 nucleus hives in one, then split it down to equal, and it'll make your beekeeping easier. And you won't have these huge amounts of honey floating around that you've got to deal with.
Keith, does that mean you're going to present your lazy beekeeper presentation again?
We could do, yeah. Somebody still remember that, yeah.
Hey, Keith,
How to make $10,000 off one hive doing nothing.
No, that's a different one.
Keith, this is Ed Peters.
Hi.
One of the things that is often discouraged about reversing is that the cluster or the cluster is not always going to be in the bottom or the top. It's going to be in the middle. And would that be the same, run into the same problem with Herman Werner's method? Would, the diagram showed that there was, that the frames were completely filled.
Yeah, no, it's Herman Werner. If you read his manual, the book, he openly says, sometimes they're at the bottom, but it's more than likely they're at the top. If they are at the bottom, then what you just do is make sure that there's layable empty cells directly above where the current cluster is. You might not have to move them. You might have to remove honey from directly above them. But the queen will generally move up into the higher brood chamber. And so it's you've got to look at the hive first and then ascertain. But he does remark on the fact that some of the clusters are down below, and normally they're down below because the top's filled with honey.
And then when you just add again, when you move those frames with brood, you put them in the center of the bottom box. Yeah.
So essentially what you're doing is a reverse demery. So normally what happens is the brood is in the top brood chamber. Okay, so what you'll do is just move it down, and then you move empty frames with no honey or larva. You move it above them on the upper brood chamber. In some cases, you can actually just reverse the brood chambers. But remember, every hive is different. So when you look at it, we're talking about the averages. But it's a very useful technique, the Herman Werner, because you don't have to find the queen. You're not looking for the queen. You're not shaking the queen off. And it's almost a gentle approach. You adjust it, you put it back, and you don't have to use a queen excluder. So there are a lot of little advantages. And it's good. It's good. It's clever. It's reversing the brood chamber effectively, but you're moving the specific frames you want to move, so the queen always moves up, and it creates the heat from the rearing brood that has to be kept at a high temperature. So it encourages the queen up into that column of heat, and she will lay above, and then it's relatively easy to find the newly laid ones to move down below again. So it works nicely. It's things do get a little bit out of hand, so I personally prefer the demery method. So very big colonies with the Herman Werner, as you saw at the end, and that's one of his slides. He says, put another brood chamber on if they get too big, and then the next time you go there, the queen could be in the bottom, the middle, or the top. So you've really got a lot of work, and she might even be up in the supers. So it's when they really accelerate, then it can get into a bit of a muddle at the end. And probably the major emphasis in swarm prevention is you'll read a lot of the books, you'll read a lot of the documentation, and people are saying, 7 to 12 days. Every 7 to 12 days, you do an inspection. It's every 7 days. You go 8 days, you could lose your swarm. Okay, so your swarm could be gone on that 8th day. So it's very important to adhere to the 7 days. And you'll hear these people repeat it often. Yeah, just wait, you do it 10 days later. Yeah, it's gone. You've lost the swarm. Or 12 days, you're guaranteed to lose it after 12 days. So yeah, but we'll go through the the demery. The demery is very, very productive, and you rely on a queen excluder, but you definitively know your hive. If you can get that under your belt, the technology behind it, it is fantastic. The knowledge of how the bees are working, and you know which queen is producing the best, which one is performing better than the other ones, because you're analyzing every single cluster, every single brood chamber. And once you've got the routine working, it's just remote. You go in, and after the second, on a demery, your first and your second inspections, normally take, of the season, they take a little bit longer. Because if you find the queen, you want to remark her after the winter, and but on the third occurrence, it becomes really easy. The third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, they become very fast, very easy, and it's just moving the brood up, moving empty frames down, close it up, remove honey as well if you want to.
Yeah, so people can sign up on the event calendar for next Tuesday for the demery. I'm sure a lot of us have heard Keith, and Keith's taught us, but there's a good chance that he's done more demeries than anyone in the world. So if you're not doing anything on Tuesday from 7 to 8:30, you should go on the event calendar and sign up for that seminar. It's going to be amazing. No pressure, Keith.
Oh yeah.
You can handle it.
And there are a lot of little tips and tricks, and sometimes people make one little mistake, and then they curse the demery and they say it doesn't work. It's just, but they've missed one little step. They've missed one slight little nuance to it. So, yeah. And
any other questions out there from? We're gonna.
I have a question.
Yes, Marie.
So walking around the bee yard with all the snow, I could see how the bees do come out and do their business. How do you differentiate between if they're just doing their regular excrement or that you have some sort of dysentery?
Mo, would you like to take this? You
No.
can take it, Mo. I don't want to take this.
Yeah, you give me all the poop.
Yeah, this is the poopy one, this one.
Typically, you really don't need to be concerned. And if you do have a colony with dysentery, it will typically be on the front of the box, and it will be nasty. The little spots and whatnot are normal. And again, you'll be alarmed if you ever see dysentery, and there'll be no question. It's not pretty. And it's also not that common. And on that same note, it's interesting. You saw the spots on the snow many years ago when laundry was hung out. That was a real problem for beekeepers. If you can imagine white sheets hung out, and you'd have a flight day, and all the neighbors might be upset, and it could be a circus.
Yeah, and just to add, Mill's right with that one. I rate them in 3 categories. So number one, if you see the little spotting on this in the snow or on your neighbor's car, that's good. If you see spotting in front of the hive, not that good. But if you see it inside your hive, then it's really not good. So those are the 3 categories we look at when the bees do their business. So
Yeah,
out on the snow, it's really good.
Yeah, on the outside of
could
the
I-
hive, on the front, sometimes it'll look even like it's been put on with a putty knife or a paintbrush, and that's when one gets alarmed. But a lot of the severity of the amount of spotting that you'll see on the snow depends on the length of time that they've been confined to the box, and we've had a real stretch of cold weather. And so you are going to see more of the spotting and whatnot, plus the snow, of course.
So I am seeing the spots like right at the top entrance. So right in the where they're going to come out, they have kind of soiled all in that area.
That sounds a little aggressive or active to me. This is Don Coates.
Yeah,
A couple of quick comments that it would seem to be a matter of amount, of course. Uh, your image of smearing sounds a little more significant, but it always brings up the question of nosema, whether nosema is involved, and particularly those hearing, why if they would send me some of the scrapings of anything that appears to be excessive, just use a hive tool or whatever and collect, well, about 4 to 5 scrapings and put it in a baggie and mail it to me. And we could add that to the data that we're collecting on nosema.
yeah, that's a good point, Don. But we should remember, dysentery and nosema are two different ailments.
Yeah, that's worth really stressing, because you get the bad name of dysentery or diarrhea being a sign of nosema, which it is not. There's no direct correlation.
Yeah, and I've seen colonies look quite nasty, even on the outside, the front of the boxes.
Yeah.
They'll clear up.
Yep.
They'll clear up.
Okay.
Cool. Anybody else? Don't be afraid.
I was going to ask if we're to mix some kind of the oils, the wintergreen and the, oh, I'm trying to think of the other one, tea tree oil, I guess, and the lemongrass oil. Could you mix some of that into the sugar when we make candy to try and help with that? I mean, is that would that be a benefit to the bees over winter with eating all that fondant and candy? Anybody?
The best thing with the bees, remember the more dysentery that you might have might be an indication of dark honey with a lot of ash content. So the Canadians worked out that sugar water, white sugar water feed is probably the best for the bees. It's even better than the light honey. So the darker the honey, and the honey that we had later in the season, the lanternfly honey that we got, that's not particularly good for overwintering, especially for what we've got. So a lot of our hives should have indications of spotting, but we generally see it as soon as the weather turns nice, the sun comes out, they manage to get decent pollen, decent nectar, then that miraculously disappears. Unless you have a major problem. But it's seldom that you lose a hive at all because of that, because of dysentery. I don't think I've ever lost a hive with dysentery, a bad case of dysentery or nosema.
Yeah, I can't remember either. I can't remember that either. I think the nosema can set the colony back, but how about Don? Fatality from nosema common? I don't think so.
No, I would not blame it on that. We're coming up with maybe four or five hives that have very high spore counts in our monitoring now, and interesting that most of that cluster are strong hives. So the literature will comment in a general manner that it is very difficult to correlate any clinical signs with nosema. You really don't know it's there just by observation.
I think it tends to set the colony back, doesn't it, Don? The stress? Or not?
Well, Randy Oliver will say you've got to find out if the number of individual bees reaches more than 30% in the hive. And to do that, you have to squash individual bees and count the percentage. So it can set them back. According to
Certainly,
Randy.
if you squashed, if you killed 30% of the bees, that would be a bit drastic.
No, all you need is about 30, and if you got
Right,
10 of them that are positive, boy, then you got to figure. Then you
right,
got some
right.
data. So 30 bees is all you need.
The old saying in beekeeping, and I think you've heard me say it before, and it goes way back, is that the best cure for any bee ailment is a good honey flow.
Yeah, honey flow. But there's a definite correlation of a pollen flow that increases the occurrence of nosema. We're just getting in, well, next month we'll get into the true cycle of increased nosema occurrence.
If it's any comfort, the first year I had my third bee yard, 3 out of 4 hives showed what I thought to be dysentery all over the front of the upper entrances. The only hive that survived that winter in that new location was one of the hives that showed signs of dysentery, and one of the only hive that did not show signs did not make it. So that maybe you could take a little comfort in that. They could have a little dysentery and it'd be fine.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I started beekeeping right up in the northeastern corner of Pennsylvania, just a few miles south of the New York State border. And we used to have severe winters. And at the first good bee flight day, the snow, it would look as though a farmer had taken his manure spreader. And it would smell bad. But those bees had been locked, they had been in the box probably for a good solid month and a half. And it's just part, and plus we had a lot of goldenrod. Now, I think that you folks had goldenrod flow this fall. That could aggravate.
No. We have lanternfly.
Well, I knew that, but I think you had goldenrod also.
We generally don't get goldenrod. We're too low of an elevation to get goldenrod.
Okay.
You might smell it on the hives, but you don't get the honey from it.
Okay. Yeah, I have goldenrod down here, but I do not get honey. And it's because of the variety of goldenrod, of which there are many.
Yeah, I have an abundance of goldenrod where I have 5 hives, and you could see the yellow pollen coming in steady. Didn't have any dysentery in them.
And you can smell it too. It smells like sweat socks, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of a funky odor.
Keith, you make mention to lanternfly. What are you referring to?
I think Merle better take this. He's been talking about this a long time.
Before you do, who asked the question?
This is Jerry.
Jerry, okay.
Jerry, this is the lanternfly sucks the juices from the plant and tries to take as much protein out, and what comes out of it drips down from the trees, much the same as we have with aphids. The honey is derived from this because the bees collect from that, and it's called honeydew, and it's very famous in Germany and so on with the aphids, and the lanternfly as well, which is the recent addition where we are getting honey from that, which has been tested to contain the genes from the lanternfly. That's why we're getting a later harvest now than what we previously had.
During the bee chat, we chatted, I think Jeff mentioned Pennsylvania in the heaviest infestation areas. Some of the commercial beekeepers are making more money than they ever have, more honey, and they're thrilled with the lanternfly situation. Fortunately, I don't have them, but the day will come.
Yeah. Well, we get it. It's a dark honey. I think most of us have been getting it later in the season, and it's dark. It's got a more of a sourish taste. It's supposed to be very good for you. It contains a lot of additives, if you can say that. But It's famous in Germany. They call it the Black Forest honey. It's honeydew,
And honeydew, or traces of honeydew in what we think of as proper nectar honey, is not that uncommon. That the bees will pick up various types of honeydew. It gets mixed in with the honey, and we sort of think nothing of it. And this tremendous concentration of lantern flies, because it's so dark, it's something new, it catches attention.
It's, can I ask a question? Is the honeydew, is that coming out of the tree or whatever? Or is it coming out of the lanternfly?
Coming out of the lanternfly.
Oh my.
Okay, so if you go to a maple tree, you'll see where that's got a lot of lanternfly, and you'll see it almost raining with drops that are discarded by the lanternfly. So we were asking earlier on if anyone could get a photograph of bees collecting it, and we see a lot of yellow jackets around, but I haven't been able to see bees collecting it. But I sent my honey in for sampling and testing, and it was confirmed that it did contain lanternfly.
So this is coming out the back end of the lanternfly?
That's it. Yeah. Now you've got it.
I think aphids were originally the source of honeydew.
That's it. Yeah. No,
absolutely.
And that honeydew comes right out of their skin.
Out the back, isn't it?
Well, yeah, they sort of sweat it out. They're trying to get, as you said, the last little morsel of protein that's in the sap of the plant, but that protein level is so low that they have to consume an enormous amount of sap and get rid of the liquid.
The sugar, yeah.
Yeah, and that gets extruded, but I'm pretty sure it comes right out of their skin. It may be a particular part of their body.
Yeah, you see it comes out the back end. If you look at some of the documentaries with ants collecting it, you'll see some good close-up pictures of how the ants collect it.
Yeah, okay.
And the bees do the same thing. It forms a droplet where you'd expect it to come out. So it's
this is Ed Peters. It comes out the very end. It doesn't come out. Doesn't come out the exoskeleton.
But it comes out clear instead of brown.
Yeah, it comes out well. They just simply overconsume, and they just push it through their body, and they don't need all of the sap and nutrients that they suck up from the plant, the host plant.
How did we get on this topic now? I think we should move away. This whole bee gurus is just spotting on the snow.
You guys are shoveling something tonight. You have 1 minute and 45 seconds to be gurus.
And any other topic besides this one?
I guess it leaves me out.
I think to keep
There's a question.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a question from Kimberly. At what point do we need to consider feeding pollen?
Okay, so I can do this, the first part, and then Mel can do the others. Just very quickly, in springtime where we are, that's Chester County, I do not feed pollen at all. I do not feed a pollen patty. I don't feed raw pollen, although I do have them available if something does happen. On average, we don't need to feed in the springtime. The bees have an ample amount, and my bee hives, the colonies go build up really fast. If you, by some chance, have too many colonies for that can supply them, you might then need to. So if you've got 30 or 40 hives at one location and there's not sufficient pollen, then it might be justified to feed them. But you'll find a lot of people have beetle infestations because they leave the pollen patty in there, which is also beetle food. So if I notice that after the spring buildup, if I notice there's a 7 or 8 or 9 day period where the bees can't forage for pollen, I will then make a pollen patty and give it to the bees. So, but generally we don't need to do that. We have a very good early pollen flow. But if you're prepared to spend money, yeah, go buy it. Mo.
Yeah, I agree. Keith is spot on. The only modification I would put to that, and it's more of an advanced technique, is that by feeding, one can stimulate or push the colony a bit for build it up quicker. Now, that's really, unless if you build a colony up quicker, what you've really done is aggravated the swarming problem. So if I was going to build a colony up strong as quickly as possible, that would be for the purpose of making a split and having an abundance of bees. But to feed or stimulate brood production only to have the bees end up in the tree, it's really a sort of a lost cause. And I'm also very quick to take pollen. If I do use pollen, I'm quick to take it off because it is a real attractant to hive beetles. And if the bees have too much pollen and put in too much, there'll be huge areas of bee pollen or pack pollen, and hive beetles will go right for it. It's almost like putting bait in the colony.
On that note, I think we need to turn it over to George to start the meeting.
Awesome. Thank you, Keith and Merle, for being bee gurus, and hopefully we'll not have so much poop talk next time. But anyway, welcome everybody to our February meeting. This is a picture of a nuke that I have that I'm really thrilled with. So this is just one of the nukes that's in two deep boxes, and it's been a nuke all season, as Keith was saying. So I have a bunch of, the club has a bunch of colonies that we've kept small. So what you're looking at are 5-frame nukes, and it has, that's fondant. I'm not sure if I'm gonna stick with fondant again this year, but that white stuff is fondant on top of that hive. And then you can see that above it is the inner cover, and it's got a shim on the inner cover. So the shim is just maybe 1.5 inch, 2 inch shim that the fondant goes in. And that's a great looking nuke. I'm really excited about that nuke, and that will has done really well. So Ernest is our expert in overwintering nukes, so we can all learn from Ernest. But I'm getting there. Again, anybody's first meeting. If it is anybody's first meeting, you can sort of let us know in the chat. You can sort of type in the chat who you are and introduce yourself, and then Mark will shout out as the meeting goes on, whoever's new. We really value our new members. I mean, it is our new blood for the club, and really gives us energy to sort of make sure that we keep the education and the program not only focused on the bee gurus, but also on the new beekeepers too. So as you're aware, we're 700 primary and associate members, really all here to make your beekeeping experience as enjoyable and successful as we can. One of my goals as president is to sort of make sure that all of us are sort of achieving sustainable beekeeping. I put this slide up every month, so I'm sorry for those of you who've seen it a bunch, but my definition of sustainable beekeeping is to really help you take care of your bees using the best management practices that are out there. And surely coming up, swarm prevention is one of them that we'll be focusing on a lot this month. That really maximizes your bee health, because we don't want sick bees in our hives, and we want you to maintain your enjoyment in beekeeping, whether or not your enjoyment is keeping 3 hives or whether or not your enjoyment is keeping 303 hives. It's all good, you know, but we want to minimize the losses. We don't want the person with 2 or 3 hives to lose all of them, and we don't want the person with 300 hives to lose 100 or 200 hives, and really to be able to plan your expenses, because as we all know, the expenses are going up this year. It's crazy. The price of wood has gone up, and that's obviously translated into everything we're buying for our bees. And the ultimate goal is to only buy bees once, so in your career as a beekeeper.
So we do have two new members. Robert Miller is here, as well as actually a third one, Amy Campbell, a fourth one, Anna Delamater. Boy, they're whipping on in here. Dave Heilman, yeah, I think it's Heilman, and Eva Pappas,
You're doing well,
and
Mark.
Mike Auckland. Okay, I need more names that are hard to pronounce. I'm screwing up names.
There's a lot of new people on tonight, which is awesome. Absolutely awesome. And if you guys have thoughts as we go along, you can type them in the chat box or, send me an email afterwards. We really want to get your opinions and feedback. As far as the CCBA Sustainable Beekeepers, absolutely. I'm happy to report that we have 16 big hives, not big hives, but full-size hives at the apiary, which are all alive. And then I have 7 resource nukes at my place that we use for queen rearing, and they're all alive. So far we have 24 out of 24 hives alive as of February. So I have to thank Tony, who's our apiary manager, and Tony's apprentices, Tracy and Chris, who helped him this year maintain those hives. So good job, guys. Excellent, excellent work. February meeting, you're going to hear a lot about the conference, see a lot about the conference today. It's impressive. This is by far and away, probably since I've been in the club for 10 years, our most impressive lineup of speakers. I think have 12 speakers. Some of them nationally renowned speakers speaking on all kinds of topics. Even if you're a beginner beekeeper and just starting out, and some of this may be at a level that's kind of 2 or 3 steps above you, I would still encourage you to attend. I mean, these are surely opportunities that may not present very much. And also you're supporting the club. The club is really known, at least regionally, to putting on one of the best conferences, and through the work of Janie and Mike and Deb and Keith as the board sponsor, and Justin and Paul, and I can go on and on, Paul and Joanne and Nancy, and I know I'm forgetting people, but there's probably 10 or 15 people that really spend every Wednesday night talking about this, and multiple days during the week putting this on. So if you haven't signed up, you can go to the event calendar and sign up for the conference. What else are we going to talk about? Paul's going to talk about grants, our 2021 grant program. We're going to hear a little bit more from the conference from Janie. We'll hear briefly from the education committee. I'll be filling in for Walt tonight for the mentoring committee. Tom and Russ will be talking about the beginner committee. Ed will give us a quick update on the nuke committee. Tim will talk about innovation. Paul will be back to talk about what he's doing with his bees now. I'll wrap up a little bit, and then we'll go to the breakout sessions. We only have 6 breakout sessions tonight. We have advanced hive management by Keith. We have beginners discussion by Tom and Warren. We have dead out and disease why by Don. We have eHive, electronic hive monitoring, Mark and Ray, website help. So now we have a website help breakout session. You don't have to spend an hour in there by any means at the end, but if you're struggling with the use of the website in any way, whether or not that's logging in, using the storefront, figuring out where the meetings are, whatever you're struggling with, go see Jack and Jen tonight, and they'll help you out. And then we're going to get a little more innovation. So a lot going on tonight. So if I'm talking fast, I apologize. Really quick, our officers, are all here tonight. Kathy's our new officer. She's our new secretary. She's doing a phenomenal job already. You'll see lots of communication from her. And most of the other people, we're here to sort of run the day-to-day programs of the CCBA, and we really enjoy doing that. So if you have any feedback or concerns, they're the people to talk to. Quickly on officer reports, Jack, I always start with Jack. Any quick updates on membership or registration anywhere?
Quick update with regards to membership is we still have about 160 members from 2020 who have not yet paid their dues for 2021. If you are one of those people, you have till the end of this month to pay your dues. Come March 31st, any 2020 member who has not renewed will be dropped from the membership rolls, you will no longer get any communications from the club. You won't have access to the website anymore, and you'll have to pay the $20 reinstatement fee to get it reinstated. So I urge you to pay your dues before the end of the month.
Thanks, Jack.
Yep.
Yeah, and if there's, again, just pay your dues, simple, if you want to. Mark, anything on your end?
No, not at this time.
Cool. Paul, you get a lot of airtime today, Paul. Anything else? You're good?
Yeah.
And Kathy, anything from a secretary standpoint?
I got nothing.
Awesome. Brief officer reports. Paul, you want to talk a little? So, you know, we've had a little background. We've had grant programs in the past. We're kicking off our 2021 grant program tonight. Paul is our sort of lead of that, and I'm going to turn it over to him to explain a little bit about what
we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two, like how nice it is to switch and save on your auto policy. But it's even nicer knowing that if this...
Thank you, Don Coates. Take it away, Paul.
Thanks, George. These are the basic tenets of the grant program. The board of directors decided that we were getting too rich and we needed to give our money, not all of it, but 15% of the general operating fund to give back to the community. So this year it means about $6,000 will be given out in grants to individuals, programs, groups, or corporations in a competitive process. And individual grant maximum will be $1,500. So we may have 4 or 5 grants to give this year. Note that the proposals are not going to CCBA members or their close relatives like a spouse or a child. And actually not to organizations with whom the CCBA member has a direct connection or affiliation. So the intent here is to avoid the perception of nepotism or favoritism. The grants will be competitive, and the proposals must further one or more of the objectives of the CCBA. So you all know our objectives and interests in pollination and beekeeping and conservation and the like. So that will frame where we give the money. However, applicants must reside within or have operations within the CCBA membership area. We like to keep it local. Applications can be received up until April 1st. And then the grant committee will review the proposals and make a recommendation to the board of who's to get the money and for how much. And the decision of the board will be final. That's about it. Any questions on that? Thank you.
Just one quick question for you, Paul. Are you a member of the board?
No.
Okay. Because that's a question that someone's going to ask and they're going to think of it later. So we'll answer it now.
No members of the board are on it. There is a grant review committee, which is consisting of me and Mark Mitters and Lauren Healthcott.
Okay.
Excellent. So if you have further questions about whether or not an idea that you have or an organization that you know would be a good fit for this, you can clearly reach out to Paul and he would be more than happy to give you some guidance in this. We are kind of in a short window. We have 6 weeks to sort of, we'll be pushing this information out there via our Facebook page, our public Facebook page, and on our homepage, our public view homepage of our website. So we really do want to give out grants this year, but as the board and the grant committee, we don't want to just make precedents for just giving away money for no good purposes or no good reason. So we are competitive and we will review, and if nothing meets the bar, then the money will just be in there next year, and we will, whatever as of 12/31 is in our operating fund, 15% of that money will be allocated to grants every year. So anyway, so hopefully we'll be able to get some of
George,
that.
I have a question for Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Is there actually a standard application form or process that's available? So it can be
Not a form. We will post onto the website the more about the grant program, and we would ask people to just submit their own proposal. What did I say here? They must describe the scope of the project, the timeline, the budget, the reasons that would advance the objectives of the CCBA, the number of people to be involved, and itemization of costs and materials. So you can include all that. That information will be on the grant program document on our website. But there's no particular form. Just meet all those objectives and all those criteria, and we will review it.
Thank you.
So as soon as I get a free moment, I will be posting that up on the homepage. So people that are interested in downloading that information to work on help the CCBA find people worthy of our external grants. Good. Let me see here. Committees, our committees are full. Our leads and our co-leads are pretty full. We have 14 committees. We now have a grant committee. You'll hear from some of the committee leads tonight. If you're interested as a member joining a committee, there's a committee sign up button on the home page. So you can go to the home page, hit that, and pick whatever committee you want to be on. And I thank all the committee leads as usual. This has been one of my personal objectives of the CCBA is to get the work down into the committee level and not so much at the officer level. And I think we're starting to accomplish that by having really talented committee leads. We've grown too big to have all the work done by just a handful of people. So thank you. The census is coming. The census is coming. The census is not here yet, but last year we had 200 people fill out the annual census. Really, the annual census is giving us a sort of a state of what our membership is doing with their bees and how their bees are doing. It really is important. This year, because of the weather, we're going to push it back just a tad. So the census is going to open with the March meeting and close with the April meeting. So it'll be 1 month, but we're pushing it back 2 weeks because of the weather. Because some of the questions ask about your hive winter survival. So we figure the 1st of March may be a little bit too soon to potentially gauge that. So, you're going to hear a little bit more tonight about education and evaluation. And this clearly, the census is a way for the club to evaluate how our beekeepers and our bees are doing. So without this information, it makes us hard to sort of decide what programs to offer, what education to offer, and really whether or not the club is reaching sustainable beekeeping. Because, that's what we want in the club. We want the members of the club to be sustainable beekeepers. And that's really what the census questions focus on. So last year we had a 51% participation rate in the census. So we had a little over 200 and some members fill out the census, and I hope to get 50% again this year. So when you see this coming your way, please take a moment to fill it out. It'll only take 3 to 5 minutes. You're going to hear a little bit in the next month or two, actually probably a lot in the next month or two, about this concept of something called the Honeybee Learning Center. We have entered into an agreement with Fred Wood, who's a property owner, a large property owner behind the Wawa complex on Route 1. He has 70 acres. He's big property. We have a little piece of it where we're going to be able to keep some hives. Those hives are there now, and all those hives are being monitored with broodminder equipment. There's also a meeting room there that has some electricity, but no heat. And it also has a very strong Wi-Fi connection there. So this is where we ran our beginners program last year, and it's where we're going to be running the beginners program this year. And you may also see some additional programming coming out of this site. When I think, I'm not a teacher, but when I think about learning, I think about combining both education and evaluation, and that's the best way to get learning. So when I look at what the state of the CCBA is right now, when I think about what kind of educational stuff we're doing, we have monthly meetings. We've added thanks to the education committee's work, a lot of virtual seminars in the past year, and I think they've been terrifically well received and definitely adding value to the educational side. We have our website, which has some videos and some documents for best practices. One of the things that we'll be doing this year is trying to boost the educational resources that are on the website. We have the beginners program. We have Grafting Wednesdays. We clearly have the annual conference. And you're going to hear a little bit more about Lunch and Learn too. That doesn't exist yet, but I promise you it will, and it will be very cool. When I think about evaluation, what kind of evaluating are we doing within the club? Because again, education is good. It's just information that's being passed on to the membership. But I think you have to combine it with some sort of evaluation to know whether or not people are truly learning or there's benefit there. We do our annual census. That's important evaluation for sustainability. We do our mite-a-thon just for people to evaluate the health of their hives and encourage that. We won the mite-a-thon last year. I'm sure we'll win the mite-a-thon again this year. I've instituted seminar surveys, and I have to say I've been really impressed with the rate of return on those seminar surveys. For the first 2 seminars, we've had 50% of the people who've attended the seminars complete the survey, and we get that back to the speaker. What that's also allowing us to do is look at what practices people are learning from that seminar, because from the survey, because one of the questions is asking, what's your practice change from getting this education, which is huge, because all the education should result in some practice change at the end of the day. We did a honey survey last year. We're probably not individually doing enough with hive records, but that is again an evaluation. And those people who bought queens from the queen program know that they're being asked to fill out a queen report card. So that's some of the evaluation of what we're doing that's going on. And when I think about learning, what have we done that?
George, back for a second on the annual census. The question: if we're a member outside of Chester County, Northeast Maryland, should we participate in the census?
Absolutely. So that no matter one of the questions on the census, I think we may have taken that off your zip code. Absolutely. If you're a CCBA member, we want you to fill out the census. So if you're just joining tonight and not a member, you won't get the census. Only CCBA members will get the census. And absolutely, whether or not you live in Delaware or Chester County or Delaware County or Maryland or South Jersey, please fill it out. Everybody counts. So lastly, when I think about learning, combining education and evaluation, the apprentice program is a good example of that, how we're doing that, and that's a new program. We did some benchmarking last year with the surveys where we're getting the surveys, giving people the club's overall responses, and hopefully you're taking that information to see how you compare to the what's going on in Chester County. The Queen Project is a huge learning initiative where the Queen Committee is involved in a continuous improvement project with multiple arms to really improve the quality of the queens that we're producing. And hopefully you're going to hear a little bit about a passport program this year, which is going to be more of self-evaluation of individual learning. So I'm impressed, with the amount of education and evaluation and hopefully more learning. So the whole idea is to bring this under one roof this year, under a learning center concept with multiple hubs for education, and again, more to come on this at future meetings. So again, thank a whole bunch of people who are currently involved in the formation of our learning center. a little bit about video educational seminars. We talked about Keith's seminars. He is one on the 16th. You must attend that. You have an opportunity to hear from the world expert in demery. So next Tuesday, 7 o'clock. And then the 23rd for all the things that us typical beekeepers do: equalizing splits, swarms, typical swarm prevention. So if your Tuesday night is free, join us. Janie, are you on? I don't know if I saw Janie join tonight. So a little bit about the conference. You heard about the conference, awesome speakers. Usually our conference registration is about 250 to 300 people. I hope we did that. I hope we do that this year. Again, it's a new model for us. We're trying to make it interactive. We're trying to make it a little fun too, but we realize it's not the same experience as being in person. So I just threw out a number of 500. I don't think we'll get 500 registrants, but why not? It's just going to be that good. So if you're a member, please, please attend. It's really, anyway, please attend. Tracy, are you on from the education?
I am. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay, George? Okay. Hi, everyone. It's Tracy from the Education Committee. Wanted to just take a moment and talk to you a little bit about hive crawls. So last year in 2020, we were able to complete 2 hive crawls, one in the spring and one in the fall. And they were broken out by different geographic regions. So that way we could accommodate more visits for more people based on where you live and in your area. So what we're calling on for is help now. In order to get these going for 2021, we need to start figuring out who would be open to hosting. So yes, we're looking for members. You can be brand new members, experienced members, or somewhere in between. But we need folks to kind of raise their hand and allow folks to come in and look at their apiary sites. And so just to give you a little background on what is a hive crawl. So through the club, we'll have signups. So it will be limited. The visitors will bring their own masks, their suit, and honestly, just a positive spirit. I kind of think of this as like a holiday house tour that you always see. It's all about just going out and see what others are doing, how they've set up their hives, what it looks like in their backyard, and having a really great conversation around it. And so part of it is just, again, being able to see what others are doing, but also having some great conversations and learning. So it could be showing how you do a hive inspection. It could just be showing how you have your hive set up, where you have a water supply. You could be talking about mite counts or looking at electronics that you're utilizing within your hive. So no topics off limit. And that's why, again, this can be geared towards beginners to experts. So again, what we're really hoping is some of you will volunteer and let us know if you would be open to be part of the house tour of your apiary sites. If so, if you could reach out to Stephen, and you'll see his email address there, and let him know that you might be interested. You don't even have to give a firm commitment at this point, but again, just showing interest. That would be fantastic. And we don't have the date yet, but we're thinking it'll most likely be in the late March or April timeframe is when we're shooting to do this.
So,
if anyone, yep, go ahead.
Yeah, Tracy, why would a new beekeeper volunteer to have a hive crawl through their apiary?
Well, I think one of the best things is you might get some experts there at your hive to give you some great tips, tricks, and ideas. Everyone likes free help, right?
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. I mean, if don't, for our new members, don't be intimidated. You know, I mean, I think it's a great way to get to know some of the people in the club and to show off a little bit what you're doing, or show how good your brownies or cookies are. Whatever you want to do, we're up for it. So it's all good. Ed, I saw Ed. Ed is our new nuke committee lead this year, and he's going to tell us a little bit about our nuke pickup.
Yeah, right here. Everybody hear me?
We hear you, Ed.
Good. Yeah, the new committee, we got a couple goals. It's very simple. We want to provide each month, we're going to provide a little tip what we can be doing this month with our nukes, how we can create nukes, little tips and tricks, nothing elaborate. We're going to be working with the Queen committee as far as the queen cells and the purchase of queens for making nukes. And we can give education on how to introduce queens to a nuke, how to place, queen cells in nukes. And the third thing we're doing is we're selling nuke boxes. The club did purchase 120 nuke boxes, 100 deep, single deep nuke boxes, 5-frame, and then 20 medium nuke boxes, which is 2 medium 5-frame boxes, a migratory cover, a bottom board, and an entrance introducer. The price is $20 for the deep nuke box and $25 for the medium, simply because it contains 2 medium boxes for making nukes. Nukes are very, nuke boxes themselves are very popular. They're great for, there you go, for making new colonies, for if you're going to raise a new queen or, just doing your splits. So there's, in fact, right there, split your large colonies to reduce the swarming impulses to swarm cells. You open up your box in the spring, you find some swarm cells. What do you do with them? If you have a nuke box, there's an opportunity to make a split right there. You get a call if you're on the swarm list, or if you're in your apiary and you see a swarm in your tree. Sure enough, just go in your garage or your shed, grab the empty nuke box, throw a couple frames in it. Boom, you got a place you can put a swarm. You got a failing queen, spotty brood, or you're just replacing your queen. You want to put a new virgin queen in, but you're not sure. You don't want to get rid of the old queen yet, or you just got a soft heart and you can't squish a queen. Sure enough, grab your nuke box, throw a couple frames in there, throw your old queen in there, let her live her days out. Mating nukes. For instance, if we're in the queen committee, or if you buy a queen from the queen committee cell, we can talk about how to build your nuke as far as putting what frames in there. You can put your queen cell in there or a virgin queen and give her some time, and hopefully everything works out well. And sure enough, she'll return a mated queen and there's a new hive. Establish a new queen for requeening a large colony. And again, same thing. After your queen comes back mated, it gives you an opportunity for her to just, you can evaluate the brood pattern. Sometimes a queen comes back mated, she's not a great queen. This will give you an opportunity to really evaluate the frame of brood. It's spotty, it's not great. She makes a lot of drones, whatever the case may be. There's no sense in replacing a good queen with a bad one. To move stock around. If you're in your apiary, you're trying to equalize your hives. You need a place to put these frames. You go to your 10 framer or 8 frame, and you got a weaker colony. Grab a couple frames, throw it in a nuke box, close it up, walk it over to the hive that needs a little bit of help, and perfect. Going back to the splitting, for part of your IPM is to when you split a hive, there's a brood break. With that brood break, creates a gap in the varroa reproduction. So utilizing a nuke for a split can be part of your IPM. Small scale starter colony. If you only need 20 queens or so, you know how to graft, you can make a starter colony. Put a 20 frame grafts into a starter colony. They pull them out when they're ready to split. Then if you don't need that starter colony anymore, use the frames from the nuke, split the bees up, split the queen cells up, and then turn them into mating nukes.
Should we
So, yeah,
keep going? Should we
there's
keep
plenty of
going,
things-
Ed, or do you think we're done?
What's that?
Do you want to keep going with reasons, or you think you got enough up there?
I think I think we're good. I think
You
we're
think
good.
we're good? We could do this all night long.
No. Let's not do that. But honestly, they're on sale now in the storefront, and that's a breakdown of what you get for your money. They're on sale in the storefront. If you go there now, you can buy them. We're looking at the 20th of March. That'll be the weekend after the conference for a pickup. So what we're trying to do, we want to unload all of them on the 20th. And $20 for a nuke, you're going to be hard pressed to find that anywhere from any of your suppliers, or $25 depending if you run mediums. So I would say run over there this week and buy them all.
Thanks, Ed.
Good, George.
Yeah, so they're on sale at the storefront. Just a nuke box is this year running you $14 or $15 just for the box itself. Not including the migratory lid and the solid bottom board. So I mean, we've kept these prices the same for 4 or 5 years now. So they're wonderful to have. If you don't, Ed gave you lots of reasons, and they're all highly valid, but you need to get simple stated. If you're going to be a sustainable beekeeper, you got to have a nuke box or two around. So if your goal is to stay in this and manage your colonies, best management practices, you need a nuke box or two. So again, the club is not making any money on this. We're kind of getting a discount rate from Ike at Forest Hill because we're buying 120 of them, and then we're just sort of passing this on to the membership. So
there's a number of questions, and I want to answer them so that everybody hears them. You order them from the site as stated. You can order a maximum of 5. The nuke boxes all have closed bottoms, and Howard, thank you. It's just the boxes, no bees.
We'll throw in a bee.
That's very important, particularly for the new beekeepers. When you hear of buying nukes, or you should buy a nuke. When people say that, they're typically talking about a nucleus colony that has the queen, the bees, and everything else.
Yeah.
And what we're selling through the storefront is the woodenware, the bottom board, the boxes, the top cover. It's just the boxes, not a complete nucleus colony.
Right.
We throw in the nails too. No, that's important.
And no
That's
frames.
important.
It's all
And
good.
no frames. That's a good point as well.
No frames, but lots. We hear there may be at Ed's place at the evening. We hear there may be brisket on the 20th. So you may want to schedule your nuke pickup at Ed's place, just as a little bit of as a tip. You've heard it here tonight.
Sell them all.
I'm not sure if the beer comes with it or not, but I hear the brisket's awfully good. So anyway, moving on. Apprentice program. This is an awesome program. We started it last year. Walt had to be dragged off to work tonight, so he wanted me just to pass along the message. 3 messages. We need teachers. So the apprentice program has learners and they have teachers. We have plenty of people that want to be learners and not enough people that want to be teachers. So what does it entail to be a teacher? We'd like you to be a good beekeeper. We'd like you to have some skills that you can teach. We'd like you to be open to having the apprentice come twice a month when you're to your apiary. So you're not going to their site, they're coming to you and they're helping you manage your hives. In return, you're teaching them and you get some free labor. So it's a wonderful experience. I had 3 apprentices last year who all did phenomenally well. And it was fun to do. So if you've been beekeeping for a few years and you think these meetings put you to sleep a little bit because you know it all, then definitely become a teacher. For those people that have completed the apprentice program in 2020, you will get a CCBA nuke in 2021. So that's some of the incentive for the apprentices to finish. We will probably have those nukes sometime in May and June. As a reminder, we supply the bees and the queen. You supply the nuke box and the frame exchange. So you'll be getting 5 frames of bees, a colony basically, and in return, you'll give us 5 frames back for the frame exchange. So more information to come, but we have not forgotten all the people that have completed the apprentice program in 2020. I will hold, we will hold true to what we said, and you guys will get your nukes, no problems. So that's that. Beginners program, Tom or Russ, are you on tonight? It may be you, Russell, because I haven't seen Tom, but I know I saw Russ.
Hi, George, I'm on.
Take it away, Russ. No
All right. No pressure. I took this program last year as a very beginning to beekeeping person. My wife and I did. And it was so extraordinary that I decided to help George out and become co-chair of this committee, because I found it extremely valuable that the topics that we discuss on a monthly basis pertain directly to what your hive should be doing at that time. So George mentioned earlier our beekeeping site. This is the same site behind Wawa Media. There's an in-person option, and it's $90 for the course. That also includes a textbook and a hive tool. And then there's also a virtual option, which is $40 for the course that you'll be able to take remotely from your home.
And again,
is that the only slide we have, George?
That's it. You get one slide, Russ.
Okay, no problem. So just as an example, if I got a few minutes.
Absolutely.
In March, for example, the general overview of the class will discuss topics like hive types, sizes, and placement, where to put them so they get some sun and stay out of the wind. You can also bring your unassembled hive parts, and we'll show you how to assemble the hives. We'll also review the other types of bee equipment that are necessary to be a successful beekeeper. We'll discuss protective clothing, sources of bees, where you can get new colonies or bee packages, how to install those bees, feeding your bees, and that early in the year, we're going to be using a 1-to-1 sugar syrup. We'll also show how to load and light a smoker, which you're going to need to calm the bees down, as well as record keeping. Record keeping is extremely important as a new beekeeper because you're learning as you go, and attending these classes is very helpful. And you can make notes while you're at the class, take that information back with you to your apiary, and you'll be able to track your progress over the years that you're going to be keeping beekeeping, because it's great to go back to understand when the honey flows start in the area where you live, how much honey you produced, and things like that. So on a month-to-month basis, again, we'll be reviewing exactly what's going to be going on in your hive. And Paul also talks about cowboy beekeeping on these calls, which I believe he'll be doing tonight. And that's information is available to him because he keeps such great records. So it's very important in a program to maintain records over the course of the year throughout this program.
Thanks.
All right, George?
Yeah, that's great. And thanks
Sure.
us for stepping up as only a second-year beekeeper to co-lead the committee. It's great. We only have 25 in-person slots. So as of I think this afternoon, I think 8 were filled. So there's 17 slots still available for in-person.
Actually, there's fewer than that, George.
Okay.
Remember we did that count.
Okay. Well,
yeah,
somewhere around there.
Yeah, maybe 22.
Mark keeps me on track with the facts, basically.
Yeah.
So if you're a new beekeeper, I have no data to prove that it's going to help you be more sustainable and keep your bees alive, but I got a feeling it will. So consider one of the programs. Tim, you're up next to talk a little. Tim's our lead of innovation committee, so he wanted a few moments to talk about a new program potentially.
Hi, everybody. Gamma irradiation is the service that's done to sterilize equipment throughout your hive. So if you've got dead outs and you don't know why they've died, it's a good way of getting rid of bacteria, spores, viruses inside your hive by sterilizing the gear. So at the moment, throughout the tri-state area, we're trying to find people that are interested to have their gear sterilized. I've set up an account with Sterigenics, which is in Salem, New Jersey. Basically, we're looking at stacking and wrapping the gear up on pallets, taking them down by the truckload and getting them done. So this is not a new process in the area. Mark Antunes from Montgomery County, their association, he's been doing this program for about 13 years. He's just getting a little bit older and they're starting to have issues with people wrapping gear with COVID, just in that age category where he's quite susceptible. I'm quite a bit younger, so I don't really have to worry as much. And I also have a bigger facility and forklifts and so forth to load the gear. So it's easier for me to handle. And because I do beekeeping full time, I can spread out the pickup days for equipment and so forth throughout a week or a longer period. So we're spread apart. So if anyone's got any dead outs coming up, let me know and we'll work out a certain volume. We need to have about 6 pallets to get the discount rate to make it feasible to do it. It works out, last year it worked out to be $144 a pallet. If you look at the dimensions of your zoom in, it's basically 6 stacks of gear on a pallet, 70 inches high. It works out to be about $5 a box on a deep. So from a cost analysis perspective, it's a really nice safeguard with your gear. You don't, obviously this is a sterilization, so you don't need this for new equipment. This is only for old equipment that's potentially got some level of disease in it. Okay, and then changing hats, innovation. Okay, so we've got a couple of quick slides for you. Okay, what separated us from the cavemen originally was the discovery of fire, and how we were able to adapt from that. Next slide, mate. So here we go. We got our chimpanzee having a great idea. He's seen the fire. And at the same time, he's like, oh, I can capture that fire, use it as a tool and become a better beekeeper. Okay, so one of the things we're looking at for innovation this year is actually make up an innovation concept with a competition. So one of the things we could do is developing our own comb production. So whether you are able to use a scrap piece of wood like I have to make up a little box, or you want to use a piece of PVC pipe to make up a tube unit, it's basically want to find a way of housing your comb honey that is one, cheap in construction that makes food grade standards, and just actually being able to do comb honey in a hive and doing it well, that's quite an advanced beekeeping process to actually get that all drawn out. So the piece that's in my hand there in the photo is actually just wild drawn comb from a frame missing in the box. I deliberately did it just to see what the nectar flow was in the area and the strength in the colony, because they need to be quite strong to draw out wax on a flow like that. So that is really nice, light spring honey. That's almost like cave honey where they've grown it out themselves. So we'll post more up on the innovation page about it on the website, and then people can check it out. You good, George?
I'm good, thanks.
Yeah.
So
thanks, guys.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Tim. Paul's Paul's our backyard beekeeper who makes enough honey to feed your neighborhood with 4 hives. So Paul always does the cowboy beekeeping session, and he basically gives us sort of tips and advice on what he's doing with his hives this month. So take it away, Paul. Did Paul leave us?
You're muted. You're muted, Paul.
There you go. That will help.
I gave you a lasso this month.
Thanks. I'll rope them right in. I usually overwinter 4 regular hives and 2 nucleus hives. And I noted in my journal that last year at this time, around this time, I looked in on January 24th because we had a 52-degree day. And I was able to find, I just looked at the top box and I was just able to find 4 out of 6 queens. And I found eggs and larvae, mostly on frames number 5 and 6 for all the hives. So I was very happy to see that. But that was January 24th last year. We haven't hit a 50-degree day in a long time. And with this snow and the cold, I don't really think that the same kind of thing is happening this year. It might be because there are some stores of pollen in all your hives, and they may be making brood now, but it's going to be a limited amount because pollen is a limiting factor. They need to bring pollen in order to supply the protein for making larvae. So there may be some brood rearing going on right now, but in a limited extent, at least in the northern part of Chester County. I was, a week ago, I was down on Route 1, and I did notice maples and elm in flower. And I was very surprised to see that, but up here in Downingtown, it's the frozen north. So there's really not too much to do right now, but if you are worried about your bees getting enough pollen, you've heard from Merle and Keith, that's not a great idea to put in hive patties, at least not a huge hive patty. You don't want to put a whole quarter pounder in there, maybe break off a quarter of the quarter pounder and put a little piece in and see if they eat it, and then replenish as necessary, because the hive beetles will go mad and multiply like crazy. What I like to do is to put out a shallow dish of Ultra Bee supplemental pollen. So the Ultra Bee food is handy for the bees to find before a real pollen flow starts. And I put it in a sheltered place, and the bees will find it in no time if they're flying. And they'll find it in no time and bring it all back to the hive and kick off the brood rearing. And when there's enough natural pollen available, they'll just drop it cold turkey. And they don't prefer it, but think of it as a rescue food. So if we do get a 50-degree day and it's calm, then by all means, take the top off your hives and check the honey frames closest to the brood chamber, right around 5 or 6. See if there's enough honey. If there's been depletion of the honey right around the brood area, move them. Get the frames from the outside of the hive. Number 1. Number 10, see if there's honey there and move it close to the brood. You don't want the bees, when they're raising brood, to run out of food. And if it gets cold again, they won't break cluster to move over to get that food. It has to be right next to them. So that's about it in February. Not much to do. Just go over your gear, make new frames, order new equipment, repair the old, and good luck with your cowboy beekeeping.
Thanks, Paul. I think Paul's a wonderful example of how you can make 700 pounds of honey with 4 hives. You know, it amazes me that in our area it's possible to do. You know, but I think it's not upset, but it's really knowing what's going on in your hives and keeping records and really practicing all the best management practices all the way through, whether or not it be disease management or swarm management or all of it. So anyway, thanks, Paul.
You're welcome.
I know we're a little bit late on time, but I'm going to go through a few slides because I've been in my barn most of January, sort of putting together equipment. And I had this, and in the barn is all this equipment that hasn't made its way out to the hives yet, or has made its way out to its hives, and now it's back in your barn. So that's been my winter fun. So I thought I would just sort of do some comparison slides really quick. This is more for the newer beekeepers. So you have different options on how many frames you can put in a box, and I just sort of stacked them all up. There's 10 frame boxes, which is the green one on the bottom. That's 16 1/4 inches wide, and it's got 14 3/4 interior space. And it's really the standard sort of commercial box that commercial beekeepers use. It holds the most amount of frames, and using the 10 frame boxes does limit a bit on the height of the overall colony because you have more frames in a single box. The downside of 10 frames, they're heavier. So a lot of people go to 8 frames. So the 8 frame is the wooden looking box above it. It's clearly lighter than the 10 frame. The interior space is 12 1/4. So the amount, when you put in 8 frames, the leftover space on an 8 frame box is a little bit more. than on a 10 frame box, which can be kind of nice because it gives you some more room to move around frames in that box without squishing bees. So that's nice. The one downside is I found that not every 10 frame is 16¼ inch wide, but every 8 frame is not 13¾ inches wide. So a lot of times they'll make variations on how wide an 8 frame is. So you may get a queen excluder that doesn't quite fit, or you may put 2 8 frame boxes on top of each other and one smaller than the other. It probably really doesn't impact function at all, but it kind of, you know, if you're one that likes it all lined up, your 8 frame boxes may not completely align if you get them from different places. Ed talked a little bit about 5 frame boxes. They're one of my favorite size boxes, usually used to start new colonies. They are the lightest. The interior space is 7¾ inches. Again, you can keep a colony in 3 nuke boxes all season long. Again, you're going to have to manage the population of bees in it, but there's no reason why you can't be successful and maybe not produce 80 pounds of honey from that hive, but easily produce 20 to 30 pounds of honey from that hive. So if that's more your goal, you may want to consider 5 frames. And they also make a 4 frame box. The 4 frame box is kind of nice because the 4 frame box is 8 1/8 wide. So 2 4 frame boxes make up a width of a 10 frame box. So you can put 2 4 frame boxes on top of a 10 frame box. And sometimes people will overwinter small colonies in 4 frame boxes. So they'll have their 10 frame box and they'll put a screened double screen board on top of it, and then they'll put 2 smaller colonies on top of that to overwinter. So that is the nice thing about 4 frame boxes. They're kind of hard to find, but I'm not promoting Ike at all. You can buy them from wherever, but I know Ike has 4 frame boxes if you ask him. So what's right? I don't know, but they're your typical frames in the box. Box depth gets.
Hey, George?
Yes, Jack?
Yeah, can you go back one slide just for a second?
Absolutely. And if anybody wants to comment, please do.
Just for the benefit of the beginners out there, I just wanted to point out that your 5 frame and your 10 frame boxes are what we call medium depth, and your 8 and your 4 frame boxes are what we call the deeps. You can put medium frames in any of the boxes, but you can't put a deep frame in a medium box.
Correct. Thanks, Jack. And that's box depth, the next slide. So I have 2 5 frame nuke boxes next to each other. On the right is the deep box, and on the left is what we call a medium box. I think Tim refers to them as 3/4 boxes, I think, or maybe not. But a deep is, the advantage of a deep box is the greater depth of uninterrupted comb for the queen to lay. So the frames are larger, and therefore the queen has more room to lay. On a deep 10 frame box, they're very heavy. You know, they can get up to 80 pounds. So they're more weight to lift for sure. And you may have less inventory of boxes because you need overall less boxes to make up a hive if you're using deeps. A medium is generally 2/3 of a deep. So when you're trying to, you know, sort of calculate how much is going to be in a medium related to a deep box, it's 2/3. So you'll get 50 pounds of honey in a 10 frame deep instead of 80 pounds. Generally 3 medium boxes are equivalent to 2 deep. So if you're running a 2 deep brood chamber, the equivalent of that would be a 3 medium brood chamber. You know, a lot of people run deeps for brood and mediums for honey. If you run mediums for brood and mediums for honey, then you only need 1 size frame or 1 size box to do all your beekeeping. So again,
and there's a 3rd size, and that's the shallow.
There is a shallow, which generally people use for comb honey. So all the people that are in, no, not all the people, but a lot of the people that are in Tim's comb innovation competition are getting out their shallow frames, which are 5 11/16, I think. Deep is a shallow. Generally not used that much except for the production of comb honey. Again, there's no right and wrong in this. It's just what you prefer. A lot of people who are concerned about weight will go to more medium boxes than deep boxes. Joints. I've made a lot of joints this. I've done a lot of box making this season. So there's generally two types of joints that make up a box. The right hand side is the box joint, and that's an Ike box, and his joints are just phenomenal as far as box joints. They are the strongest joints. You will not pull that apart once that's glued and nailed. It will be there forever. The problem with box joints is if you're going to try to cut them yourselves, you're going to have to hang out with Ed for a little bit and get some training in woodworking and then make a jig to be able to do that. So it's not the simplest joint to make. There's 5 times more ingrain exposed on a box joint than a rabbet joint. So I thought that was interesting data. And we think that ingrain is where the wood tends to absorb the water the most and rot. So there is more potential for potential rotting on the box joint. And again, not all box joints are created equal. And if they don't fit well and you have gaps in between those joints or cracks in between those joints, it's just more room for water to collect, and your boxes are going to not last as long. And there's lots of nails. So there's about, on a deep box, there's 40 nails to nail in. So if you have tendonitis in your wrist or in your elbow, it's going to hurt a little bit. A rabbet joint is what I've been making the boxes out of. That's on the left-hand side. They're really simple joints. It's basically just a 3/4 inch dado cut at 3/8 of a depth. And you can do that with a table saw or a router. So again, you require some skill. Obviously, don't cut off your fingers until you use your tools safely. But it's not that hard to do a rabbet joint. There's less ingrained exposed. You can see on the box on the left, there's just that little sliver of ingrained exposed on that box. You do need screws to put in. Nails are probably not adequate to hold together that box on a rabbet joint. And maybe they're not as durable, especially on the edges of that box. On that top edge where the two ends come together, even though it's glued and screwed, it's probably not quite as strong as the box joint down the top. I've learned that surely in this country, people expect to see the box joint as their joint in their boxes, but there's a lot of other places in the world that are using more rabbet joints. And again, if you want to do your own assembly, I would recommend the box on the left. They really put together nicely and not that hard. To finish them, so what are your options for woodware finish? You can do paint. I love the color of paint. I mean, Anne held a hive crawl at her place last year, and she had all the boxes just of these vibrant colors, and it was so beautiful. So, and people will paint flowers on their boxes, or they're just amazingly beautiful. That's the only reason why I like paint, honestly. But 2 coats takes time to apply. Maybe a painted box will last you 10 years. Paint has, like everything else, has gotten expensive, but we talked about going to the paint store or going to Lowe's and looking for the paints that were mixed strong and that are selling for $8 a gallon instead of $30 a gallon. And you can also vary the color on the exterior of the box to help with hive temperature. So again, in this area in the summer, we tend to use lighter color boxes to help with the heating. There are a bunch of people in the area that are wax dipping, that have wax dippers. It is the best protectant against water and sun. It's amazing when you put water on a wax dip box, it just sort of beads and comes off. It's a whole lot easier than painting. You basically dip it in a tank of hot wax for 10 minutes and you're done. It is more expensive than paint, both to set up the tank yourself, if that's what you want to do, and to dip versus paint a box. I like the natural beauty of the wood, so you're able to see that better. The lifespan's 25 plus years on a dip box, so your box is probably going to last longer. There's a little bit of discussion about whether or not the wax dip box inhibits the development of the propolis envelope inside the box, and whether or not that could be a negative thing for the health of your bees. So I think what you do to finish your woodware is kind of up to you again, but they're your options. And some people will stain too, which I guess falls under a paint. If you're painting, you definitely, most people do not paint the inside of the box just because you don't kind of want the bees exposed to whatever's in the paint material itself. You just paint the outside and probably the top and bottom edges of the box, but not the inside of the box. Frames, this comes up a lot in our club, wood versus plastic frames. Which one should you talk? We're talking about the frames, not the foundation, but the frame itself. Now, plastic frames obviously are going to have plastic foundation. I don't think I've ever seen a plastic frame with a wax foundation, but I'm sure somebody's created that somewhere. Anyway, plastic frames, they come in different colors. Black plastic frames, that's a green frame because that's what I had in the barn. But the common colors are black and white. I heard somebody told me that Pureco will actually custom make whatever color you want if you buy enough of them. So if you wanted to have blue frames, you could have blue frames in your hive. I'm not positive of that, but that's what someone told me. The nice thing about plastic is it's durable. The other nice thing is if it's double waxed, if it's not the wax foundation, it's durable. It's already pre-assembled, so there's no assembly of the frames and ready to put in the hive. But sometimes they do warp over time, I find, like they won't stay straight and they'll sort of bend a little bit, the plastic frames. And if you crack it, they can't be repaired. The wooden frames are natural, they don't warp. They tend to get more propolis on them. The plastic frames tend to have less propolis, which could be a good thing if you makes getting the frames out of the boxes a little bit easier. But again, maybe propolis is a good thing. Justin showed the example of a propolis small hive beetle trap that the bees made, which was pretty cool last year. And I think that was on a wooden frame. The wooden frames have a tendency to break apart over time with inspections and sometimes with the extractor. And if you're so inclined, you can make your own. Again, wooden frames, plastic frames, they're just choices. The foundation is what's inside the frame where the bees will build their comb. You can do foundationless. I didn't put that up there, but again, to make comb honey, that's generally foundationless. You can go with plastic or wax foundation. The plastic foundation is on the right. Usually it's black foundation, but I didn't have any black frames not in the hive, so that was white. The nice thing about plastic foundation is that you can see eggs easier on the black plastic. The plastic foundation generally needs a good coat of wax for the bees to build on it. Sometimes it has a reputation of the bees not building well on it, but if you get the double waxed, I've had no problems with the bees building on it. If you want to melt some beeswax and get a paint roller and roll an extra coat or two of wax on the frame, it'll probably help the bees accept it. The plastic foundation has nice longevity. It's easier to use in an extractor. It's easier to assemble. There's no wiring necessary, and it's very easy to scrape and remove the old wax. On the wax foundation, which I have to admit I've never used, it's natural. The bees are supposed to draw out the comb faster. You can cut queen cells out of it. So if they build queen cells, you cut them out and add them to your splits or your nukes. It does take time to wire and assemble. And there's some discussion about whether or not the wax foundation actually has contaminants in it in the commercial wax foundation. So it's something to consider. Feeders, really quick. This is all stuff I had around my barn. So one afternoon I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna take some pictures. So I have examples of on the left is a frame feeder, on the right is a top feeder. I guess in the middle is a mason jar, which I guess is also a top feeder. The frame feeders usually go in positions 1 or 10 or 8. So usually on the outside of the box. They can be 1 or 2 frames in size. So I think that's a 2-frame frame feeder right there. So it's a little bit bigger, but they make them narrower too that fit in 1 frame. You do need to disturb the colony to fill it up. So if that's inside your box, you need to you need to open up your box to fill up that frame feeder. A lot of times people put it on the outside so they could just slide the inner cover over, or slide your migratory cup over, so you're not exposing all the frames, and then you just sort of fill up the feeder from there. So there's ways to do it to minimize exposure. The downside of frame feeders are that bees can drown in them. But some of the ones now have this cap and ladder system where the bees can sort of climb up and down sort of a mesh that's inside the feeders to limit drowning. And I know there's other ways to limit drowning in them, but so they're frame feeders. There's also a top feeders. There's different kinds of variety of top feeders. The advantages of top feeders is that they hold a lot of food. They can hold up to 2 gallons of syrup, some of the bigger ones. So, you know, if you have a hive at an out yard where you just aren't going to be there for 2 weeks and it's the fall and you want to put, you know, 20 pounds of syrup on a hive, you could fill it up and the bees be good. There's no disturbance of the colony to fill the feeder, so you're not. And the one downside is the syrup, I think, tends to cool faster in the spring and the fall when the temperatures are cooler. So with your in-frame feeder, you're getting some warmth of the hive to keep that warm. When it's sitting on top of the hive, you may get less. And then there's nothing wrong with the mason jar either for the backyard beekeeper who wants to just, who's out there every day, who wants to fill up you know, the quart or 2 quart mason jar and just put it over the inner cover. That works too. Covers, there's 2 kinds of covers. There's telescoping covers and there's migratory covers. The telescoping covers on the right. So a telescoping cover covers the top and it also goes around the 4 sides of the hive. So it's more like, I don't know how to, I guess a box lid sort of. They tend to be more expensive. They do require an inner cover because if you don't have an inner cover, the bees will put burr comb or propolis between the top bars of the frames and the telescoping cover, and you won't be able to get your hive tool in there to pry off your cover. So you need to run an inner cover. So when you're outfitting a hive with a telescoping cover, you need an inner cover and a telescoping cover. A migratory cover is just basically one piece. You don't need an inner cover. It sits on top of the hive, and therefore accessing the bees only requires 1 cover. The other advantages of migratory covers is that they don't overlap the side. They don't hang over the sides of the hive. So if you wanted to push 2 hives together for the winter for warmth, you can do that. If you're moving hives and you want to sort of get them all nice and tight on a trailer or on a flatbed, the commercial guys use migratory covers. The downside of migratory covers is they tend to not be as secure and let the weather in. So you really got to be careful that that top of that migratory cover is aligned with the top of your hive. Because if it's off a little bit, you're going to get wind and rain in the hive. And it's really hard to make a top entrance for a hive too. So if you're just running a single migratory cover and you want to run a top entrance, you have to be a little creative on how you do that. Unlike with the inner cover that has a notch in it, the inner cover automatically gives you a sort of a top entrance. Bottom boards, there's 2 types of bottom boards. There's solid bottom boards and there's screen bottom boards. It's pretty self-explanatory to what's what. Solid bottom boards generally are cheaper. They're probably a little bit better with cold protection in the winter. But on the flip side, there's less ventilation in the hot summer. On the screen bottom boards on the left, there's a number 8 hardware cloth that's replacing the solid bottom basically. And we talked about better ventilation in the summer. So it's definitely more air movement through the hive. Oftentimes they come with sticky boards underneath. So a lot of people use sticky boards to track hive health. So they can look at Varroa drop, they can look at wax cappings or honey capping. So they're able to kind of see what's going on in their hive without opening it. And there's some people in the club that are really good at that. I'm not one of them. Again, you can put that whiteboard underneath it to make it solid, but I can't believe that the cold protection is as good as the solid bottom board. Again, we talked about some people think that the screen bottom board is also part of an integrated pest management for Varroa, because when the bees will self-clean or knock the Varroa off them, they'll fall through the screen and won't be able to get back up into the hive. Unlike maybe with a solid bottom board, if they fall to the bottom, maybe they can crawl back up and back onto the bees. Again, the evidence is there, but it surely should not be your only Varroa management to screen bottom board. And they do tend to be more expensive than the solid. And you can make the screen bottom board yourself, but let me assure you, it's a little easier to make a solid bottom board if that's what you want to do. Queen excluders, there's a whole debate on whether or not queen excluders are good or not good. I'm not going to get into that. There are basically three kinds, but the two I have on here are metal and plastic. There's also a wood bound metal queen excluder. So instead of a metal frame around the outside, there's a wood frame. They're quite nice. The metal ones last longer. They have smooth edges, so the bars in between are smooth. They don't sag in the middle. And Michael Langler showed us last year how they can be heated with basically a blowtorch to remove propolis and burr comb. The plastic ones are much cheaper. They don't last as long. They're a little bit lighter. They obviously don't rust. And I saw someone mentioning about they don't conduct heat or cold into the hive in the winter, unlike metal, but they should be off your hives in the winter anyway. So not a big issue probably. So we won't get into whether or not you should use them or not. That's probably will be for another talk, but they're your choices for queen excluders. And then there's ice cream. There's chocolate ice cream and there's vanilla ice cream. Sometimes there's a mix. Often there is no right or wrong answer. It really depends on what works for you, maybe what your mentor has taught you or what you've learned. But I also think that one of the best ways to learn is is having diversity. So, whether or not you run one solid or one screen or one deep or one medium or a migratory and a telescoping cover. Sometimes it's good to standardize and run all the same equipment, but sometimes it's good to sort of experiment and see what you like. And sometimes a little bit of both, depending on the season or where you're at or what the bees' needs are. So that's all. That's a quick review. I was going to do a little bit more, but in the interest of time, I'm going to skip over this. And I'm going to remind everyone there's Bee Chat every Friday from 7 to 9. It's informal, it's non-structured. You basically can ask questions, share experience, give advice. All the links I'm trying to put on the event calendar. So if you're looking for a Zoom link or information, you got to log on to the website. Make sure you're logged in, because if you're just looking at the public view of the website, you're not going to see anything that's really sensitive with meeting ID numbers and stuff like that. I just don't want to put that out to the public. So you have to log in and then you'll find it there. Tonight we do have breakout rooms. I know we're running a little bit late, but we still have at least 30 minutes and the breakout rooms can run over. We got beginners, which will be Tom, Russell, and Warren. We have eHive, which will be Ray and Mark. We got dead outs and disease, which will be Don. We have website help, which will be Jen and Jack. Advanced will be Keith, and innovation will be Tim. And you can feel free to jump in between the breakout rooms. So again, that's all I got, Mark.